I think my favorite play of the entire night is going to be DJ Moore over his receiving yards, over 60.5 or minus 115. In games with Justin Fields as his quarterback, he is averaging 96 yards per game. So clearly he has some major upside in this one. He's hit this number in 3 of his last 4, and the targets have always been there. He's had at least 8 targets in his last 4 games with Justin Fields as his quarterback. We know that the Bears do not have a ton of depth at wide receiver, but DJ Moore is the guy when it comes to Justin Fields. He is the security blanket and also somebody who has massive upside. If you look at some of these game logs, DJ Moore has games of 230 yards, 131, 104, and just coming off a game where he had 96 receiving yards against the Lions. You look at the Vikings, they're giving up the 7th most receiving yards to opposing wide receivers. I think DJ Moore is the guy, sabotage factor being you have to rely on Justin Fields to throw it, but it's a pretty low number. It's 60.5.
All right, I got one for you. I'm going with Jordan Addison of the Vikings. That is my one player prop for this game. And I just have a hard time seeing him not getting this. And also what I like about betting on a player like this is that, yes, you risk him having a setback, but when you're talking about a young guy with so much potential, I think as the season goes on, he can get better, which means maybe you can find some value on the totals here. His receiving yards total is set at 49.5. He has hit this mark in 7 of 11 games, including 4 of his last 5. Now, he didn't hit it last week, but also he almost hit it, and they were playing on the road in Denver. Denver is a very, very good defense, so I'm not going to fault him for that. The Bears' passing defense, bottom 10 in the NFL. Justin Jefferson, we know, is out. I know Joshua Dobbs will look at T.J. Hawkinson, but if he's not going to Hawkinson, he is going to go to Jordan Addison. And by the way, in every single home game this season, Addison has eclipsed this number. I think he does tonight. So I'm going to go over 49.5 receiving yards. I feel like this should be around 60. I like the value here.
How long do you bet a trend? Do you bet the trend until it comes to a screeching halt? Or do you say, okay, eventually all trends come to an end? Because I'm looking at this Pacers game. The Pacers are 14-1 to the over. Some of these games have been comically high scoring. Like, you look at these final scores, 136 to 113, 131 to 132, 157 to 152. So, Jenks, would you ever be brave enough to bet an under on a team that has been this scorching hot to the over?
No. No, I would not. No way. They've been unbelievable. You just got to ride this out. You have to ride it out. The Pacers are crazy because they play no defense, but they're also number 1 in the NBA in pace of play. So that's the reason why
the Pacers.
They just keep crushing it. Yeah, good job. They are the Pacers. They're living up to their name, right? That's what they do. Yeah, I would be on the Pacers. I am on the Pacers over tonight. I believe what total is 240 and a hook, if my memory serves. So, yeah, I would be on the over until I see otherwise, particularly because it's not a fluke. This is just the way they play basketball. And are you going to be on your Tyrese Halliburton prop?
I don't think so. I would need to see the number because I do believe that the books are finally starting to catch up and the numbers are usually pretty high for Tyrese Halliburton. And I'm wondering, there is blowout potential. Like, props are killed by blowouts, and the Trailblazers are coming off a back-to-back. It's a team that sometimes has trouble scoring, which usually the cure for that is facing the Pacers. But still, I think that is the sabotage factor. If you're looking at any type of player props in a game that has a 12.5 point spread. But going back to trends, do you think that you should bet on games because of the trends? Or are you somebody who says, okay, trends don't always project what's coming next. It's just what's been happening. And it's kind of like do you get what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
Because I've gone back and forth with people who say trends are not always relevant in sports betting. And they kind of equate it to spinning a roulette wheel and saying, okay, every other spin that you've had in the past 15 spins has no impact on your 16th spin. But I think if you can find a reason for why this trend has been so profitable, that's when you can actually play a trend and say, okay, if you have a lot of ammo into saying why this trend has been happening, that's when you can start saying this trend is predictive as opposed to just something that's random.
I think what you have to do is you look at the trend. Tonight's Monday Night Football game is a perfect example, right? And I was mentioning this earlier, where I believe that the Vikings are 7-2 against the number in their last 9. They're 5-1 against the Bears. They're 4-1 against the number in their last 5 games against the Bears. However, that trend came with Kirk Cousins at quarterback and Justin Jefferson in the lineup. So all of a sudden, that trend is, okay, maybe there's something to it, but for the most part, it's null and void because you have such crucial pieces who aren't going to be a part of tonight's game. So if you like a trend, great, but look at the underlying factors and make sure that you can still make a case for it.
Mr. Jenks, who is your Monday MVP?
Jalen, Milroe, and Isaiah Bond. That's amazing what happened in that game. The Iron Bowl is always so absolutely bonkers. Just imagine if you're Auburn and you've had a bad season. Didn't Auburn lose to New Mexico State? Think about that for a second. An SEC team losing to New Mexico State a few weeks ago. So what happens when you're having a bad season in college football? What do you hold on to? Hopefully we can beat our arch rival. Let's just beat our arch rival. And they had it. Auburn had it. On a 4th and 31, you talk about a dagger through the heart. Converting a 4th and 31 in any game is, I don't know what the percentages are for that happening. They are minuscule, almost impossible. Imagine Alabama doing that at the end of the game at Auburn, stunning the crowd and doing so at the end of the game to win against their arch rival and just ruin Auburn's season. That's one of those college football plays that will go down in history, as it should. Jalen Milroe, Isaiah Bond, tip of the cap. This was a great weekend for college football. Some fantastic finishes. We saw the Apple Cup. We just heard the sound there. That one came down to the wire. This was Michigan, Ohio State was great. This was a great weekend, but this was the number one play. Jalen Milroe, Isaiah Bond, MVP.
All right, so that was a good one. And the Iron Bowl certainly did not disappoint, especially since Auburn literally hired Hugh Freeze because they wanted to beat Alabama. He was the guy that was supposed to give them the upper hand in the rivalry, even though it was kind of a down season for Auburn. But I'm going to go Jalen Hurts, MVP of this one, because our reward for sitting through the 1 p.m. slate of a terrible NFL weekend was getting to watch the Bills and the Eagles square off in an overtime thriller. And listen, the name of the game this late in the season for the NFL is not, winning big and winning dominantly. It doesn't matter how you win. It can be ugly. It can be an overtime, but a win is a win is a win. And Jalen Hurts just keeps on winning. And especially when he's coming from behind. Some of the stats on Jalen Hurts now are incredible. Let's start with this one. He is now the first quarterback ever with 3 consecutive seasons of 10 rushing touchdowns. Also, Jalen Hurts has been nailed clutch when it counts. 8 consecutive wins when trailing by 10 or more points. And listen, this was not a great start for Jalen Hurts. He started off this game 4 of 11 in the first half for 33 yards passing. But the resolve that he showed in the second half, he finished this game with 5 total touchdowns in a huge win, like I said, in overtime, including the walk-off winning touchdown where he scrambled it in all by himself. So MVP of the weekend and probably MVP of the league this year, Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles.